Well, David, when I told you ahead of time, it did the same thing. I didn't share it in time because it doesn't even notify that it's even available to share until there's like 7 seconds.
Oh wow, yeah, that's funny.
Honestly, if I was one of those bomb like dismantlers, I'd be a terrible person. I'd be so bad at
I,
it. I would
I've
just
only got
panic.
I've only got 5 minutes left. I'm not gonna get this.
Oh no, oh no. And like, yeah, the bomb would go off. I'd just give up. I know as a surgeon, I'd be terrible too. So I'm glad I never decided to follow that path at all.
I am too. I am too.
Well, I guess we'll do the formal introductions. How you guys doing tonight? Lauren Coper over here at Micallef Cigars with our off the record segment that we're doing this month. Excuse my voice, I have a little cold, so luckily you won't hear me talk for long. But we have a fantastic guest on here. We have Leaf and Grain Society, David Yancey, or AKA Graybeard. How you doing, Graybeard?
Good, good. I'm experiencing a little deja vu. It's kind of like we've done this before.
I know it's like our third time on here.
This is.
Yeah,
And
because like, oh, I'm
I
sorry.
no, I was gonna say, and we're doing another Micallef pairing with another Micallef color.
Yes, yes. So, as if anyone's have heard the buzz as of late, we have recently come out, and definitely by October, everyone will have it. We have the Micallef Red that we're leashing definitely this month in October in the state of Texas. But
Uh,
I
are
decided
you
to
jealous yet? Are you jealous yet?
okay, you can't show off that you get special treatment here. People are
I,
gonna get jealous.
I'm working for it.
I know. I made sure to give you plenty of samples just in case you need to revisit again. And then I know you're doing a review on it as well.
Hmm. Yep. This is the review one. Or no, wait. Sorry, no, wait. That's not the review. This is the. I'm confused. One of them's a review one.
Well, did you tell me you smoke it twice, right? You smoke it
I
twice to do a
Yes,
formal review on it.
yes, yeah. So when I'm doing a review, I typically ask for 3 cigars. One to smoke it the first time to just to get an understanding of it. The second one to do the review of it on, and then the third one, which I'll smoke typically 2 weeks later to see if it's consistent on it.
Mhm.
And so I try to plan it out ahead of time so that by the time I've got that 2 week span, I've smoked that third one, and then I go back in my notes and make sure that everything is consistent, and then I'm publishing the article.
Oh, I love it. It's like, well, I feel like you do take very well care of your craft. You're very strategic about when you're giving out reviews. So that's why I usually continually like to work with you. But I also like bringing you on because I do feel out you have such a strong palate and a very strong sense of taste and awareness of it that you always come out with excellent pairings when it comes to cigar pairings, and especially with a new blend like this, the Micallef Red. Uh, David over here gave us a very great recommendation.
So we are going with Still Austin. I wanted to do a rye. So when we met at Michael's last week, I wanted, and you told me what the blend was, and I knew I wanted to go with a rye on this because I wanted to have a little bit of the complementary style and also the contrast style pairing. So kind of a little bit both in one, and it met right up to it. And so at there we did Old Forester rye, and then I was like, okay, I've got to try this with the Still Austin rye. And Still Austin sent me this bottle to review in the next issue of our magazine, and this is the
Oh,
cast
excellent.
strength. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. And you can see I've got it in my nice Glencairn.
This is my second glass since I spilled my first one.
Yes, you guys missed that.
Oh man.
Too much Dayquil this morning.
I know. I'm hopefully this is the real medicine right here. But so the blend of the Micallef Red, we have the San Andreas Habano as a wrapper. Then the binder, we have the Pennsylvania broadleaf.
Mm-hmm.
And in the filler, we have Mexican and Nicaraguan filler. So I guess what made you decide that the rye would be the best complementary pairing to this blend?
Really, it was the combination of the binder and the wrapper itself. So one with the Mexican, and the Mexican tobacco has got the chocolate with a little bit of peppery notes into it, and the Habano itself is typically brings out a creamy style. So creamy style of emphasizing what that terroir brings out. So the terroir for the habanos out of Ecuador is going to be a little bit more fruity from the tropical fruit, and that's because of all the banana plantations that's there. So a lot of the cross pollination, and the jalapa and the jamastra are a bit more of that marshmallow creamy, and that's due to the soil, and and how the soil up there, in the mountains and in the jungles there. And knowing that, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get a little bit more of a creamy and chocolatey note from this in the habano, and I'm right. Well, counter that with the broadleaf, and a broadleaf has a little bit of a sweetness to it, but it has more of that lemongrass and earthy. I mean, so it's got that earthy, it's got that lemongrass, it's got sometimes it's got that alfalfa hay type note, that earthy note. Where you take that with that Pennsylvania broadleaf, and that Pennsylvania, for some reason, which I haven't figured this one out yet, there's a little, it kind of emphasizes that sweetness to the tobacco. So you take both of those combined, the rye with the rye on the front end of it has a very sweet note to it. And then the spices on a rye are typically more of your cooking type spices, but you get some peppery spices on it. And so
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's got the Mexican and the Nicaraguan, as far as the fillers go, and knowing who Micallef is, and knowing that you guys grow your own filler tobacco in Esteli, it's like, okay, I'm going to get some of that black pepper and a little bit of that charred ash type note to it, which is going to be a nice complementary of the rye, and that contrast of that sweetness with the creaminess on it. So that was my line of thinking. Yes, that quick when we were talking about this, at when we showed up there at Michael's, uh, why I wanted to try this,
And
and had no idea if it was going to work, and it really did. I thought it was a great pairing.
no, it is. It's excellent. And when we were talking about off air, like Still Austin, you were talking. It's a Texas-based rye, right? Is that what
Yeah,
you were talking?
yeah.
Yeah.
Still Austin is a grain to glass distillery in Austin, Texas, meaning that uh, all of they their grains come from right there in Texas. Local farmers, they're in the Austin area and in the surrounding areas. The water, they source the water there, catch the rainwater, and we get some of the water from the local areas, which is a lot of limestone water in the Austin area. And so they're not going out and sourcing any of their distillant. They're not going out and sourcing and buying their yeast strain, or from other areas. They're sourcing it there in the Austin area, and so it's considered a grain to glass. This is Austin juice.
I like that. So unique. Well, I feel like it's quite appropriate. Micallef being a Texas-based company, and then we have Still Austin, also a Texas-based company. So
Mm-hmm.
might as well drink where you smoke, right?
Right. This is a Texas pairing.
Yeah, excellent. So we're also talking too, because I mean, I drink the stuff, but I feel like I'm not very educated in terms like the differences. Like I'm a huge bourbon drinker, but I do like with rye as well. What's the difference between bourbon and rye? Like what makes them so different, and why would it be preference to choose rye over bourbon?
So little bit of history. Rye was actually the first spirit that was distilled in the United States, in North America, and a lot of it comes up from the the Maryland, up in the Maryland, the New Hampshire, up in the New England states. In fact, George Washington owned the first distillery distilling rye whiskey and sold that to help fund the American Revolution, to help
Oh,
pay for
really?
the American Revolution. Well, as the as they were starting to migrate further west, they came across the Indian corn. I think it's called maize. Yeah, I heard somebody back behind me say it. It's called maize. So they didn't know what corn was at the time, and couldn't get the hold of the rye anymore, and so started distilling that, and there came bourbon. So the difference between the two is that bourbon is a corn-based whiskey, 51%. The mash bill, which is the recipe
Hmm.
of the cereal grains, has to be 51% minimum or more of corn, and rye is 51% more or more of rye, of a rye grain or more.
You know, it makes sense once you break it down like that.
I mean, and that's the
Duh,
main
Lauren.
that's
Rye
the
is made
main
out of
difference.
rye.
Outside of that, everything else is the same as far as what the legal requirements are. A new charred oak container. If anybody tells you that it has to be in a barrel, that is untrue. It has to be in a new charred oak container. So legally, I could take the distillant out of the still, pour it into a brand new, never used charred oak bucket, carry it over to the bottling and bottle it, and it be considered a bourbon or a rye.
Interesting.
There is no age statement unless it's called a straight or a bottled in bond. So if it's a straight, like a Kentucky straight rye, Kentucky straight bourbon, Texas straight rye, or what have you, then it has a minimum of 2 years. And if it's under 4 years, the age statement has to be on the bottle. A bottled in bond has to be 4 years minimum, 100, no more than 100 proof, and it has to be aged at the same distillery, uh, in the barrels at the same distillery where it was distilled at, and has to be in a certified rick house.
Hmm. Oh, a brick house. Okay.
Rick house,
Oh,
RICK.
brick house. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the name of the building that the barrels are aged in. It's called a rick house.
So, like, what constitutes a rick house? Can you just name everything in a rick house?
Uh, I don't think that I don't think there's a rule or a law of of what it has to be considered a rick house.
Yeah, it's like it's
But
not like commercial and residential zoning, I would imagine.
yeah,
Or
I'm sure
maybe.
it's I'm sure it's all commercial zoning
Yeah.
or farmland zoning. I mean, you drive through Kentucky and you see all of these large barn style buildings, and even warehouse style buildings, 6, 7, 8, 10 stories tall, and a couple hundred yards long and such, and that's a rick house. I mean, and I just described what Jim Beam looks like when you drive up on Jim Beam Distillery. I mean, it's just this enormous type building. Me loving whiskey, it's like I'm walking into the promised land there.
Well, I mean, I'm using this as medicine right now, so it will deliver me from evil if I need be. So now ours is a little different. So I got the straight rye whiskey called the Artist, and you got
Mhm.
you said the double cast one.
No, this is they're both the artist.
Okay,
And
so they're
if
different
you,
strengths, right?
yeah, yeah. So if you look, you'll see that the artwork's the same.
Yeah, it's
Other than
beautiful
that, this is
artwork
just
though.
a night. Yeah, this is a
Beautiful.
night work, and
Hmm.
it's a local artist that they use as well.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah, this is the artist, and this is a cast strength. So where yours is 90 proof, this one's coming in at 116.
So proceed with caution.
Proceed and enjoy. And I've got the same one that you have, and there is a very big. I mean, there's a difference in the profile between the two. So the cast strength has a little bit uh, heavier viscosity
So it's
on
gonna
it.
sit heavier on the palate.
Yep, it sits a bit
Okay.
heavier on the palate. The oils are much more prominent,
Hmm.
present in there, and that's what higher proofs are known as, or are known for, is having that heavier viscosity, that the thicker oils, and what the oils will coat your tongue and coat your palate, and it helps subdue that higher proof.
You know, it's interesting because like our Micallef Red is more of like a medium body cigar, but it's very. I want to say I don't know if this is the correct, I guess, terminology for it, but it's a very mouthful of a smoke. Like it envelops your whole mouth when you smoke it. It's very voluptuous. So I feel like it can compete with higher caste ryes or whiskeys if need be. It's not gonna like be muted to the strength of the rye or whiskey that you're drinking.
Yeah, in fact, when the other night, I described it as a medium plus
Yeah, medium plus.
body. Um, and the reason why, now, it doesn't have a heavy weight
No.
to it, so it doesn't feel heavy in your mouth. So where that really plays nicely is that this makes this a nice, good, Texas summer day smoke.
Hmm.
Because you don't want a cigar that feels heavy on your palate, because it feels like it's weighing you down, in the Texas heat. Same thing applies to your drink. So, is what we were talking about. When we describe a body on a wine, we're talking about the mouthfeel. We're talking about the viscosity of it. We're talking about the oils. Are they thicker? Are they heavier? What does that mean? Well, that same applies to cigars. Except for cigars, we have not just the weightiness of the viscosity, the weightiness of the smoke, but we also have the amount of smoke, and so that's where the plus came in. So
Hmm.
while the smoke feels lighter on my palate, there's a nice good amount of it, which I like, because we get the flavors from the tobacco through the smoke.
Yeah, and well, what I like about this cigar too. So this is the third one out of our colored series. First was the black, very heavy hitter, a lot of Lajero, full body, and then we have our blue that we came out afterwards, which was like I called it a very gentle medium, but both were successful, still hot sellers to this day. But I do find that depending on what kind of palate you have to be very mindful about when you decide to smoke them. With the red, I feel like mediums are easily a very go-to. Like I'm always in the mood for a medium body. Like I like to have a red. I like to have a full body, in the evening after my palate's been sedated a little bit or has been, worked my way up. Or the blue, which has to be the first cigar of the day for me because my palate's medium to full. But the red is like easily medium, even medium full. It's still like it's a very habitual one to grab for the first time.
Yeah. I would actually consider all of them that medium plus as far as the body goes.
Oh, really?
The
Even the
bl-
blue?
the blue and the black. Because
Oh,
remember,
okay.
when I'm describing the body of a cigar, I'm
I know
talking
we had
about
an argument about this last time.
yes, I'm talking about the viscosity. I'm talking about the weight, and the weight of the smoke, and then the amount of smoke. The blue, I would say that as far as intensity of flavors, it's a medium intense flavors, but the flavors are in a more cooling, calming type. So you're getting much more with that one. You're getting much more earthy style flavors because it is a Sumatra. You're still getting a little bit of that chocolate creaminess because of where it is. It's a Mexican. So you're getting the combination of both of those, but it's much more of a subdued subdued flavor profile. The flavors are still prominent there. The black, where it's the San Andres, and these are all San Andres,
Hmm.
but it's the San Andres, and I want to say it's the Criollo. I'm not sure, not positive on that, but just from the flavor profile of it, much more intense, heavier in the intensity of the flavors, and bringing out a bit more of that pepperiness, and especially because you have those ligeros.
See, this is when I get, I want to argue with you because I always thought, like, because viscosity, as you said, I thought was the same as body, like the intensity of flavor or the weight of the
Wait,
flavor on your palate. So, what's the difference between, like, it makes you sound like there's a difference between viscosity and body. Like, what exactly is the body? What would you
the
describe as the body as a cigar?
viscosity is the weight, how the smoke feels on in your palate and how it feels on your tongue. Okay, so how it feels, but you can have a full-bodied cigar where the flavors are not that intense.
So, what's body?
So body is the weight.
Okay.
Body is not flavors. You don't describe a wine. When you say that this is a full-bodied wine, that doesn't mean that it's strong, heavy tannins, uh, you know, massive amount of black, red fruits, cherries, and such. A full-bodied cigar, I mean, a full-bodied wine has that heavier mouthfeel. Now, does the tannins help with that? Yes, the tannins help with that. Does the Ligero help with that? Does it
Yeah.
help? It helps increase the intensity of the flavors.
Mm.
So a lot of things, what people will miss. Unfortunately, the way that we have marketed our cigars over decades has created this misunderstanding of what the different terms actually mean.
You guess.
Um, so a Ligero oftentimes is associated with spice and pepper,
Hmm.
but it's not. Ligero, that top leaf, other than the media tempo, which is the top very flowery ones, but the top leaf, the top primings of the tobacco plant, getting all of the nutrition from the sun, because think about what plants do, as it grabs the nutrition from the soil, goes up the stalk on it, spilling out here and there to the leaves underneath, but trying to get it to blossom, because if it can blossom, then it can propagate, right?
Hmm.
Because our seeds come from the blossoming of it, so it wants to propagate. It wants to keep its life going. So those nutrients are going up into the Ligeros and up into the media tempos. That's why the media tempos are so much full flavor. The flavor comes from the type of seed that it is, but more so the terroir, the environment, where it's grown. So most Ligeros typically are from Nicaragua, Esteli. Well, let's think about the terroir, the land, the environment. That's all volcanic area. So there's a lot of magnesium in the soils there. There's a lot of volcanic in the soils that creates that peppery type of a note. So the Ligero there is going to be intense of it. Well, I take that same Ligero, and I use Ligeros from an Ecuadorian Sumatra. I'm not going to get peppery notes. I'm going to get fruity, earthy notes. That's going to be intensified because it's the top leaf.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you said, like different regions. And I think when, especially as a cigar smoker, you when you're building your palate, you should kind of look towards where the tobacco is found and placed into the cigar, because Dominican cigars are way different than Nicaraguan cigars. I feel like Dominican are very smoother, gentler, a little bit more. You said a little bit more grassy.
Yep, a little bit more grassy, earthy, um, dusty. You know that
Mhm.
dusty trail.
Maybe a little smoother.
Yeah, oh yeah, much more subdued, and and it's a different palate. And then you take it, and you go down into Ecuador. Well, Ecuador's number one export is bananas. And so you're going to get a lot, and bananas considered a tropical fruit. So you're going to get a lot of that cross pollination. So it's, just as in how the terroir, the environment impacts grapes for wines, it impacts the tobacco for cigars, impacts the grains for the whiskeys. It all comes into play.
Yeah, it's
So
so fascinating once we get all into like I guess all of our vices and how they're originated. You have to look at water source, cross pollination, the way they evolve certain seeds to basically combat certain funguses and plant diseases. It's so interesting. We could go
oh
into a
yeah.
huge rabbit hole about it.
Well, you mentioned water. Back to the bourbon talk, and I mentioned how Still Austin, uses some limestone water, and Milam Green, which is down in the Austin area, uses limestone water. That's the reason why that Kentucky and Indiana and all in that Ohio and all those areas are considered some of the better of the bourbons and the whiskeys. It's
Oh,
because of
really?
how much limestone water is there. Well, limestone water is the purest, is the purest water that we can find and use, because that limestone itself down in the earth helps take away a lot of the impurities in the water. And that's why a lot of people will say that Texas whiskey has that Texas funk with it. The Balcones has that Texas funk. Garrison Brothers has that Texas funk. Well, they're not using limestone water; they're using Texas water, and it has a different profile to it than the other limestone water. Well, Milam Green uses limestone water. It doesn't have that Texas funk. Still Austin uses limestone water. Doesn't have that Texas funk.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'll even see like beer companies. I mentioned this, like 312. They sold out to from Goose Island. They sold out to, I believe,
Yeah.
Miller Coors, and that's Chicagoan water. And they sold that out, and then people were complaining about how different it tasted because like they're using a different water source.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going from Goose Island 2021 and 2022, and comparing that to the 2018 and 2019 uh, editions of it, and I could tell a huge difference
Yeah.
between them. Well, that's about the time that they sold. So yeah, I mean, all of that comes into play. So kind of bringing it back around, when we're describing a cigar, we go back to the cigar because of how it tastes.
Hmm.
Most people, cigar smokers, will go back to a particular blend, a particular cigar, a particular edition of it, because of we associate, we relate, we enjoy that that blend and that profile and that taste of it. We don't go to a cigar and say, "Oh, I need to go back to that Micallef Black because that was a full body, the way that smoke just felt." But understand that the body does have a lot to do with it, and the strength. Whether or not it's a younger cigar, or whether or not that cigar has aged for a while, all of that comes into play on how those flavors hit our palate and how intense they are. If I have a light bodied cigar, in other words, the smoke output is very light and it's not a lot, I'm not going to get a lot of flavors out of it. So therefore, we're saying that that cigar is light body, and the flavors on it are, well, we'll immediately say, oh, that's really smooth. Well, you'll find that it's harder to pick up the notes on a light body cigar as opposed to it is to a medium or full body cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So it does impact, absolutely does impact on it.
Well, much about flavors. I feel like we should switch it up a bit. So, you are now an author.
I am.
A little bit about you. A little bit about you, David.
A
We're going to
little
talk
bit
about you
about
first.
me. So back in July, I published my first book,
Yes.
and it's so I've picked up a few other things to do on the side. So I'm still 100% Leaf and Grain Society, still write for Leaf and Grain Society, and still putting out the magazine and that stuff. But I've always had a dream of writing and publishing my own book. Just as I had a dream of publishing my own magazine, which I did that. And so I had a dream of writing and publishing my own book. Well, I got hit by the layoffs in IT that happened back in June, and so I was laid off from my employer at that time, and started my process of looking for a job. And I have a very particular process that I go through. And being in IT as a professional in consulting, I've looked for new engagements, new jobs a lot. Because when you're a consultant, you'll go on a contract for 6, 9, 18 months, and then you're off to a new one, and you have to go and search for that.
And you're
So,
not just IT. I feel like you are a special form of IT. You are training, and you're
yeah,
mostly like training, right? Like
yes,
almost like career development.
I am a technical coach,
Yes.
um, and so from that I started a career coaching side gig, and thus came the book. So my daughter suggested to me, she's like, Dad, you're really good at finding a job. Your process works. Why don't you write a book about it? And so I was like, I will. And so I just sat down and started writing, and used AI, to help with the research on it, and put together a book on that I call Taking Control of Your Career, Step-by-Step Guide to Managing Your Job Search, which just basically lays out what I do when I'm looking for a job, and how I work with recruiters, and how I analyze my resume, and how I interview, and just expanded on that and put together a 91-page guide on that, and published it through Amazon, KDB Publishing, and it's out on Amazon now, and I've sold just under 100 books, and I've got 8 5-star ratings on it.
No, I looked at all your reviews. Fantastic. And I feel like nowadays, I think that is so testament to the times, because I think when we were going through COVID, everyone was saying like it's all about it was an employee market. Like we were the prime, like real estate to be just recruited. But I feel like that has flipped. And so now a lot of people, I don't want to say they're scrambling, but it is like a very immense task searching for a career, especially if you get laid off or you need to find a job, or you're looking for a different career. It's a great way to streamline that. So I think this is like a helpful tool, and I really like, and you have gone it through yourself. And so this is like a really great tool for everyone to use.
I mean, and that's what I hoped it would be. Um, I am deeply humbled by the reviews, and the latest one that I didn't know that it was out there, and it was anonymous, and I was reading through it, and whoever wrote it, it's like 3 different paragraphs on it. And I honestly, I teared up reading it because I was just like, wow, this is incredible feedback and accolades as to what I did, and it just testament that what I wanted to accomplish was to create a guide that would help other people find a job. And I mean, I've had someone contact me and said, look, I know you don't know me, but I bought your book. I redid my resume based upon what you said. I went into an interview and followed your tips on interviewing, and I landed a job I didn't think I had a chance of
Oh,
getting.
it's amazing.
And I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and letting me know that.
Yeah, it kind of brings me back in my early 20s when I was like desperately finding my big girl job, and it was all trial and error. But
Yeah.
even now, I think if I had to find a job tomorrow, it'd be a very daunting process.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean,
It's worse than dating because it pays you.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it might be worse than dating.
My success rate on dating is not that good. My success rate on finding a job is, is pretty good. But I have a chapter in there which I think was such an important chapter, and this one I put a lot of thought and research into it, and that is how to handle rejection.
This will be interesting. So, what are your tidbits in handling rejection on the job force?
Number one is don't take it personal.
Mm.
Don't take it personal. 90% of your resumes that go through AI tool and are automatically rejected if you don't have keywords or key terms in there.
Oh, that's kind of sad. Don't you think about it?
Oh,
In a
it absolutely is. But the fact is that it's the reality of it. And so number one, don't take it personal. If you do get feedback on a rejection, then do what I call uh, take the gems and throw out the rest. So take a look at the feedback that you're getting, identify what areas of it that you can learn and grow from, and apply those. Those are the gems, and the rest of it throw away.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back down to controlling what it is that you can control in your life. And the only thing that you can control, only thing that we have control over in our life is how we react.
Mm-hmm.
We can't we can't even control the thoughts that come into our mind. But we can control whether or not we stay focused on a particular thought or whether or not we discard it. I can't control if you know, speaking about dating, in the whole dating world, and on dating apps, I can't control if I swipe right, on a particular woman's profile, if she's going to go, ooh, I like that. Let me swipe right too. Or if she swipes left, I can't control that. So why am I going to take that personal? What I can control is how I react to it. So don't take the rejections from, in anything in life personal.
So, especially when you mentioned AI technology being using into filtering resumes, do you feel like? Well, I mean, I feel like in a way that robs employers of the potential of the people they hire, but at the same time, do you give the advice that they should kind of like not doctor their resumes, but kind of like upgrade them to meet those
I have two chapters
sound
on,
bites?
yeah, I have two chapters on the resume itself.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have
What,
to read your book just in case.
what,
I feel
one,
like I have
one,
enough job security at Micallef, but you never know.
one chapter is just on how to, the different sections, how to build the different styles of resumes, whether it's a chronological resume or whether it's a general resume, how to build that up, what to put in each different sections, how to use action type words. It's like, don't say I worked on a team that did ABC. What was it that you did on that team? I directed that team. I managed that team. I collaborated with that team. I'm using action verbs. And so that really pulls your resume out and helps it stand out from other people. Use key terms in the descriptions. Let your resume tell a story and create a conversation. That's the important thing that a lot of people don't do, is they don't allow that resume to create a conversation. I'll give all the details of everything that I possibly could have done without creating a conversation. And somebody was peeking in through your back door.
Probably my boyfriend. Yeah.
I was like, I
am in the backyard, so.
I was like, I see a picture. I see a face back
there. It does not exist beyond me.
So yeah, let your resume tell a story and create a conversation that use actual action verbs to create that story. And then the second chapter is, okay, have your general resume, but then if you know, in IT, if I have my general IT resume, but if the particular position that I'm applying for is as a project manager, then I'm going to restructure my resume and tailor it towards that particular job. And so I'm going to highlight more of what I did with regards to project management and less of what I did with actual hands-on development. Whereas suppose if I'm applying for a job as a senior architect, I'm going to tailor it that way. And so I give in that chapter a resume that's a general resume, and then taking that exact same resume and tailoring it to 2 different jobs in the same field.
It's so fascinating. Like, you never thought it has to be so strategic. At the end of the day, you just think, like, you put it on the resume, it's going to speak for itself, and then you don't have to deal with it again.
Those days are gone, especially with the way the job market is. And you know, when I was a hiring manager, I was a hiring manager, and I was getting 100 to 1,000 resumes, you know, a week. And that's what made it through the AI, you know, through the systems, you know, to where I'll get in my inbox, it's like resume, okay. And honestly, I'm skimming over it, you know, making sure that key, you know, the key terms, key skill sets that I'm looking for in there. And if I don't see keywords of that skill set, then I'm discarding it. I'm deleting it. I'm throwing it away. I'm never responding because I don't have the time to respond to that many people. So this is, again, it's a type of rejection. You can't take it personal.
Well, it sounds like a numbers game. Like, do you have any advice for people? I mean, I feel like obviously you have to play the long game. It's the marathon, not the sprint.
Yes.
Like, when it comes to job search, I feel, is that your main also advice to give people that are looking for a new occupation?
Absolutely. One, you know, especially if you're in a career change, or if you're looking for your next engagement inside your career, number one is find a headhunter and learn how to work with them. So there's a chapter on how to work with the recruiters, what you need to look for in a recruiter, and what a recruiter is going to look for from you. You gotta keep track of it. So I create a spreadsheet which tracks what the position was, you know, who the company was, what the position was, when I submitted my resume, if I have a contact person, who that contact person is, and then what state it is on it, you know, what the status is on it. So if I interview, then I change the status to interview, and then I put in a date of when I follow up with them. And there's tips of, you know, when and how to follow up with, you know, with particular people when you're interviewing. It can't ever be oh yeah, I sent out 150 resumes. Okay, so who did you send it out to? I don't know. I just went and found a whole bunch on Indeed.
And there's a point where you forget who you sent an interview, like you've sent a resume to, and then get that volume.
And it's a turn off. So say if I'm working with a recruiter, and the recruiter says, okay, I sent your resume off to to Bank of America. And then I see a position at Bank of America, and it happens to be the same position, and and I'm on LinkedIn, and I send my resume off that way, and now that hiring person sees my resume from two different people. The number one thing that says to them is that this person isn't managing and monitoring their job search, and so that's an exit. We're looking for when we're looking at resumes, we're not just looking for people that look like they're going to be good to us. We're looking for that immediate. This kind of goes back to that dating aspect. We're looking for that immediate red flag. You okay?
Really, my cold's coming out. So that, woo, put myself on mute so I wouldn't be a distraction.
No, you're good.
Don't mind me. God, this cold is working. Oh, a second.
Take the big sip. Big sip.
Okay, we're back. We're back.
All right.
All right. So
We
this is the start of a 4-book series for you.
Yes, this
So the next one is about
the next one that I'm working on now, and I'm about 4 chapters into it. Is No, I'm about 6 chapters into it. Is on what to do in your first 180 days. So now that you've got the job, don't just go into it and thinking, okay, now I got this. I can sit back, I can relax, I can just chill and just ride along on the train. No, there's things that you need to do, beyond just the orientation and filling out your I-9 and your W-4, your W-4s, and doing the required training. You need to learn how to network in your new job. You need to understand what we call the lay of the land is. What is the political structure of this? Is it an open door, or is there a chain of command that you have to follow through? What is the personality of your team? Um, what are the expectations for you to complete on your job, that is from you, and then what are those outside expectations that aren't necessarily verbalized, that you can tell, based upon how people interact and where the stress levels are in the job. um, and then something that we had talked about the other day is, which I'm going to get into this,
toxic
is
work environments.
is how to identify that toxic work environment, which you should be, there's key things that you can do during the interview process to be able to identify if it's going to be. But once you get in there, is it a toxic work environment? How do you navigate through that? And how do you set boundaries? So this book is gonna so by the time you get to your 180 days, you should have your boundaries set. You should know what the expectations are. You should know what the growth path is for you. And if that growth path is does fit in line with what they told you that it was during the interview process. So how you can make yourself, you can position yourself to be successful in the new job.
Well, I thought it interesting as boundaries and like toxic work environments because we've all been in them.
Yeah.
And I guess like because I've been in them, but I've also outlasted them too. Because like I worked with certain people in the past where they kind of contribute to it. And it was kind of like outlasting the enemy, and I got better. But I guess like, what is your advice to? I mean, I mean, obviously, I think probably a best line of defense is placing up your boundaries ahead of time. But especially when you're a new employee to a company, how do you put up those boundaries to make sure you have a good defense without robbing your employer's perspective that you're a team player?
Number one is knowing what your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we don't even know what our boundaries are ourselves. We come into a job and we don't know right off the bat that our boundary is, I'm not going to work 12 hours a day and only, and I'm salaried and only get paid for 8 hours a day because I've never experienced that. And so when you see that starting to come down the line, then you have that open conversation, with your manager of hey, I've noticed that that the team is wanting to spend a lot of is needing to spend a lot of hours, 10, 10, 11, 12 hours a day, whether or not that there's a deadline on this project, and I'm I'm not able to do that. So there I've set the boundary. I'm not able to do that. So you follow that up with, what is it that I can do to help make sure that the team doesn't have to do that? How can we work smarter rather than harder? What are some efficiencies? And you put the ball into your manager's court side of the court to say, okay, number one, I can't do this. I can't do 12 hours a day because of health reasons, because of family reasons, because I value my personal lifetime, my personal time, my work life balance, and so forth. And then I'm hitting the ball back over to you. So now you get to decide what you're going to do with it based upon me. I'm saying, I'm willing to work with you to see how we can better our work life balance here by improving efficiencies or et cetera, so that we don't have to do this, so that we can reduce the stress level. If if you have, if you're in a toxic environment where your manager is talking down to you and degrading you, and that is breaking, you feel it's breaking down your character, it's breaking down how you feel about yourself. I understand that you're stressed out. How is it that I can help you release the stress? And I want to help you release the stress, but I cannot allow you to talk to me like that. You need to talk to me in a professional manner, in a respectful manner. So I'm setting my boundary, but I'm not coming off as being defensive on this and not a team player. So I'm saying, I will not allow you to talk to me like that. How can I help you release the stress? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I do feel like I take age and wisdom takes to set professional boundaries
I mean,
always.
there's the gray beard for a
Yes.
particular reason. I mean, it's
My beard would be impressive if I let it grow, but I just don't.
well,
Uh,
I think you would look much better without a beard.
I feel too, so I don't let it grow. But yes, I think it does take, because like the certain boundaries we had in our early 20s do evolve as time goes on. And
Yeah.
you learn certain things, learn about certain behaviors that you don't tolerate from coworkers or managers, and you're able to sniff that stuff out in advance. So it does become this evolving process as you get older. And then you also take confidence in your skills, which I think can be very tough for a lot of professionals, because at the same time, it's we're doing this to, make a living. And I do feel like, there's a lot of that imposter syndrome going around where people don't feel like they have the skill sets, but we really do. So it's also taking confidence in yourself as a professional in order to set those boundaries.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Book 3 is going to be about the work-life balance,
Oh, interesting.
and that is something that's really hard for us to do. I can only speak as a man. As men, it's really hard for us to navigate that work life balance because it's in our nature to want to provide. You know, we feel our value when we're providing for somebody else, when we're providing, the needs, the financial, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so how is it that we manage that work life balance while still providing room for growth in our career, especially, starting out young in my career? I remember when I first started into IT, I was working 80, 100 hours a week, and I did not manage that work life balance. Well, that impacted my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It had a vast negative impact on my marriage, and it impacted my kids as well. And it took having a heart attack at a young age for me to go, okay, this just isn't working
Yeah,
out.
weren't you 31 when you had a heart
I
attack?
was 31
That's
when I had
insane.
a heart attack, and it took something like that for me to step back and realize that I needed to. Now I didn't master that, and I didn't get better at it until much later on in life, and by that time, with the family life, it was pretty much too late, to fix anything. But what I learned is that one of the things that we fail to do, especially in a relationship, is in a couple, husband and wife, is to communicate.
Hmm.
And not just communicate of, hey, honey, how was your day? Oh, mine was good too. Oh man, this project was really heavy, and that surface level communication. But sweetheart, I I need to do this training. By doing this training, this is going to help my career, and in the end, it's going to help our family out because this is going to mean a promotion or a increase in salary, or et cetera, et cetera. But this means that I'm going to have to take some time away at home to continue doing some studies on this.
Hmm.
How can we work this out? I need 1 to 2 extra hours a week of focused time. When would be the best time for you for me to be able to do this? So now I'm partnering with you. I'm saying you, if I'm having this conversation with you as my wife, I'm partnering with you in this. So this isn't just me of saying, no, no, Lauren, I need to have 3 extra hours a night on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you out with the kids and with the household chores or anything else like that. Well, that's going to put you on the defensive side. And it's like, well, you thinking that I'm not doing anything? I'm raising our kids. I'm doing the homeschooling. I've got my job. I'm keeping the house clean. But by me having that discussion with you, that conversation with you, now we're approaching this as a team.
Hmm.
Does that does that make sense?
It does, and it kind of like is a testament of the times, of the current times that we're going through. I feel like male and female gender roles have expanded since then. Like, and everyone thinks about women, right? Like, we've gotten to the workplace, so our roles have expanded, but men have also expanded their roles as well. Like, they're not only providers in the sense that they're going out and foraging for work and providing income for the family, they're also at home being a hands-on parent. And I feel like the last few generations have really been a good example of that. I feel like that we see more of that conversation going where men are more active within the household. So it does, like, there definitely is a strong call for having that home and life balance to be expected. I don't know. I remember I had this conversation with my dad, like, I don't know how many years ago, but he always told me, and my dad was always around too. He was a police officer, but he did night shift. He did several other roles as a police officer. But he told me, like, it's very hard to be 100% in your job and 100% at home. Like, there's one sacrifice or another. So I do find that the whole work life balance is like, it's kind of a balancing act. And sometimes you do give your 100% at work, and then maybe home's going to be a little lax, and then you switch off here and there. But it is balancing, and it is about communication. I know me personally, I'm not a mother, but I'm a stepmother. So
Mm-hmm.
my
Well,
boyfriend,
you're a mother.
thank you. not
You're a
not in
mother.
the full sense, like full time sense, I guess. But
Yeah.
my boyfriend will be out of town, so I have to be primary caregiver, and I watch over his kids when he's out of town. So it is a lot of It's a lot of balancing schedules. Like, well, I have to be out of town, and luckily we're both in roles where we kind of can build our own schedule with need be. We're blessed to be in that position, but it is very much, I mean, my boyfriend was getting on my ass today because I didn't clean enough this week, and it helped clean it up, and he was cleaning, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I've been sick, I've been doing this. So it is communication, and also being very, I guess, gracious when your partner brings up your, I guess, withdrawals, like not to be defensive and be an asshole about it. You're like, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
I tell my son this a lot, and as you know, my son has special needs. And this is something that I say to him a lot, and I've said to a lot of other people. If you expect grace to be given to you, then you need to give that grace back.
mhm.
And you'll know when it's needed. And it's this whole BS of, relationships should be 50-50 or relationship should be 100-100. That's not realistic.
It's not
That
realistic at all.
that there's times when I've had a day at work and I only have the ability to give 20%. Then she's going to step up and is going to give that 80%. And in the same reverse,
Mhm.
she's had a day, work and then come home and then everything else that she can only give 5%. I'm going to step up and I'm going to take care of that rest of it. And it's a partnership. It's a teamwork, and that's how work-life balance has got to be. And on that same hand, be gracious and allow him to vent about a day, but then you've got that boundary set up. Okay, you vented, now you've got that off your chest. Are we better? Okay, now let's leave that at the door.
Mhm.
And the same thing. One of the things that I didn't learn until much later in life is that in a relationship, when I was talking with my wife, she didn't need me to solve the problem. She needed me to sit with her and listen to her
Like acknowledge the problem.
and acknowledge. Just shut up and listen. Well, men, for those men who are watching this, when you do that, you are fulfilling her need and helping her fix the problem, which is what we need to do. But we don't realize. I mean, we're so much flowchart. I remember my ex-wife; she would say, "I don't need you to flowchart this for me." Because I would sit there and I would go,
I had a
"Okay,
coworker that
so
told me he talks to his wife and she's like, "Don't use your HR voice on me."
yeah, and me being in IT and being very technical,
Mhm.
and I'm very creative as well because my background is in art, but I'm very technical and I'm very artistic. But she would come to me and she goes, "I'm not a program. You're not going to program me. You're not going to code me. I just need you to just listen." And well, then, not understanding this whole process, I would get defensive. Well, I'm just trying to help you, and then that just shut up and just listen.
Yeah.
Well, that same goes for us as well. We come home and you don't want us sitting out there in the truck, in our vehicle, our car, our truck, for 5 minutes before we walk in the door. Well, when we walk in the door, let us, let us go, oh,
It should be an exhale when you get home.
yes.
I'm home. This is my safe space.
Let either side vent, but then leave it at the door.
Mhm.
Because venting can turn into complaining and bitching and moaning.
I
And
do
when
like
it
to
gets
complain. I have to admit, I do love complaining. I'm trying to be better though.
the way I define the difference between venting and complaining, I mentioned it one time, and I go through my breath of, yada yada, blah 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 blah, and I'm done. That's venting. But you don't understand my day, blah 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 blah, and I've repeated it. Now I'm complaining.
Yeah, to admit, I need to be better about that. I probably need to read that book really bad.
So that's book 3, and then book 4 is going to be how to be successful in a remote working situation.
Oh,
Remote
that
working.
is very interesting because the landscape of the professional landscape has totally changed.
Yeah, I mean, I work a hybrid. I
Yeah,
work a 1-4 2-3 1-4.
I'm
You
a
know,
very much a hybrid myself. I've worked completely remote for 4, and this was like in my younger days, and I thought like I needed like social stimulants. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. I don't know if COVID like rewired my brain, like probably did the most majority of people. But I was like, yeah, I don't need to be surrounded by people continuously. And well, to be fair, my job's very social. So like I
Hmm.
do need that point where I just like after I'm done.
Oh, everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does. I mean, I spend 99% of my day in meetings, coaching, or writing documents. And my day is done, and I sit at a desk all day long. My day is done, and my brain is exhausted.
Hmm.
Physically I'm not exhausted, but that brain exhaustion fits over to that, bleeds over into the physical exhaustion, and you just need that moment just to. So how do we fix that and manage that in a remote work situation?
I mean, is that would be another like kind of addition to your book is managing that? Because like, I mean, we're not doing farm labor or physical labor like we did as our ancestors passed, but like it still is a very taxing. Like everything's internally now. Is there a way to kind of like healthy exercise that out?
Yes. And one of them is the easiest thing for us to do, but yet so many of us don't want to do it.
Oh, we never want the easy. Well, we want the easy fix,
You,
but
you know what the easiest thing to do is?
hmm.
Get up and go for a walk. Get up and go for a walk. The 15 there's a book called the 15-minute rule. And one of the things that it describes is you do things in 15-minute increments. So you work on it. You work on a particular task, uh, particular task, project or something for about 15 minutes. Get up and go for a walk. So what I do is, I'm in a meeting for 30 minutes, and I block time out on my schedule, on my calendar, and I let people know on my calendar. My calendar is always up to date. If it's blocked out, then I'm not available. If it's tentative, then I'm flexible on that. But I will block times out for me to focus time or time. And I'm working at home. I block out a 15-minute time span after a meeting, and I get up and I go do the dishes.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'll I'll take the dog out for a walk. I'll go lay down on my bed for 15 minutes, just to stretch my legs out. I'll go and talk to my daughter and see how my kids are doing. But I take that break out to kind of just release. And even when I'm at the office, get done with the meeting, I get up and go. I don't need another cup of coffee, but I get up and go refresh my coffee. I get up, walk downstairs, go out the building to my car, turn around and walk back. I get up and leave the situation. Especially if you're working in something where it's like, I'm just not, I'm not seeing where the problem is on this. Remove yourself from the situation, come back with fresher eyes.
Yeah, it kind of because like if you're so close to something, it's really hard to gain like a true aerial perspective on it. And going for walks, I think is very meditative.
Oh, it's very meditative. When you're working remote, when you're working from home, don't allow yourself to get lazy and not get dressed for work.
Oh, that is you're speaking to me. Take
Dress
a
for work.
shower, get ready, like you're going out to see customers that day. It will change your whole mindset.
Yes, yes, it absolutely does. Go dress yourself as if you were going into the office. In my office, I'm allowed to wear a t-shirt. So if I want to wear a t-shirt, I do.
Hmm.
I typically don't wear it, but like today, this is what I wore to work. I would wear this to
Well, I
work
saw
today.
customers today, so I'm like,
Yeah. But don't don't make that mistake of putting on your polo shirt and you've got your pajama bottoms on the bottom. Put
as I say
yourself
when
in the
women do that all
mindset.
the time. No, as a woman though, you put on your makeup, you do your hair, and you feel like a new person.
Yeah, yeah. So there's things that you can do from a to balance your work life, working remote, and there's things that you can do and be very unsuccessful in a remote working situation as well.
It can be hard too working remote. I mean, I felt like maybe it's funny. Like I feel like we should, like how there was like BC or before recorded era. There should be like before COVID. Like we should like stagnate as the time. Like before COVID, I feel like we really needed like these social environments in order to engage and be really present in our work. And then after that, like it's very much an optional thing. So, but like I don't know. Like, do you find people still need that to be in the environment or to engage with it, or do you feel more people like are willing to be removed from being constantly involved in a social environment or to be successful at work?
I think it's kind of a mix, and I think it depends upon the person itself. That there are absolutely some people that need to be at the office to be engaged. And I say, you're at the office, get engaged. Don't, even though all meetings are, 90% of your meetings are still on Teams or on Zoom, if you're sitting at the office, be engaged. If there's other people at the office and it's a Zoom call, then 3 or 4 of you get a conference room and set up the meeting in the conference room with the rest of the people on it, or just be in the conference room still with your headset and your own laptop, and spread out so you don't get the interference, those feedback interference. But be engaged at the office, because the whole point of being at the office is to be engaged and to have that collaborative engagement, mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're working remotely, there's ways that you can be engaged in it. You're on a Teams call or a Zoom call, turn your damn camera on. What's up, Joe?
Yeah, I saw them in the comments. Well,
Yeah, so
so we're talking all about like, how your writing career has been into mostly the professional arena, but you're also a very creative person and you are indulging in fiction, and one of your new books is going to be Trapped.
yes, my novel that I'm working on, which I'm talking with my publisher tomorrow,
Oh
you
yes,
know,
I
to
forgot you're
to
going to do that.
to,
Yes.
to engage, to join in with them on the self-publishing program. But it is called Trapped, and let me pull this up here.
Oh,
I think you'll
excellent.
I will read the first part of it. So this is the prologue. So bear
Can
bear
I
with.
say, Graybeard, you're probably one of the most hardest working people I've ever met.
I got to stay busy.
I know. Every time I talk to you, even when you were searching for a job, you were writing your professional books, and now you're writing fiction. Like, I just admire you so much because, like, a
Oh,
lot of
thank you.
people, I feel like get in the lull of, I guess, I don't want to say defeat, but they're like, if there's nothing going on, they're doing nothing. And you just keep going all the time, working new projects, working your brain in certain ways to pump out stuff that would be beneficial for everyone to enjoy and engage with.
Complacency is the death of life,
Idle
and
hands.
idle hands, and I will never be complacent. So this is the intro to the book. This is called Trapped. Perhaps it was a dream, she thought. Perhaps if she pinched herself, she would wake up. But she didn't want to wake up. She wanted to stay in this dream world where she was free. Free from the accusations, free from the blame, free from the beatings. Shanna woke up just before he did, just at 5:50 a.m., same time she does every day. She looked at him, sleeping peacefully, knowing that this was nothing more than a short-lived illusion. John Howard hasn't always been violent. In fact, this has only become part of his character in the past 5 years since the death of his younger brother. While partly blaming himself for Mark's death, in truth, Shannon knows that he blames her, and rightly so. She was driving the car the night of the accident that took his life. Every morning at 5:50 a.m., she stands in her closet, looking at the clothes she has set aside as her ghost stack. She ensures that her ghost stack is not out of place. While she knows what it means, to John, it's just another stack of clothes. Every morning she makes his coffee, sets out his clothes for the door for the day, makes him breakfast and packs his lunch. Every day she cleans the house to his specifications that would satisfy his military days. Every day she prayed that this day would be different. Every night he would come home drunk, having spent hours at the bar down on Fifth Street. John drank alone, not wanting to face his friends, not that he had many left. Every night she would go to bed, her body aching, her spirit broken, and her heart heavy with the weight of her tears. She was not just beaten and bruised, but also scarred within, carrying the invisible wounds of his rage. Every day she stayed. Today, however, was different. Shanna woke up and went through her morning routine, making John breakfast and packing his lunch, saw him out the door with a kiss. See you this evening, and then I love you. However, today there was something different in her vigor and how she went about her routine, as if she was on a mission to change her life. And that's the opening to the book.
Now, you were going to first start this as a short story. So, what
Yes.
inspired you to make this into a novel?
A friend of mine, friend of my daughter's, and a friend of mine, who has a background in writing, and part of her goal was, she would like to be an editor, and she's young, but she's I respect her as a reader, and I respect her as it. So I had her read it, and she read, the first 5,000 words that was into it, and she was like, "This is good. This is hard. This is good, and this is hard. You're doing a bit of world building in this and characterization in this, and it's making me want more. You could do this as a short story, but it wouldn't be doing it justice. This needs to be more."
And if you don't mind me, because like your daughter's friend also suffered from domestic abuse.
Yes.
So, like, did you take your inspiration from that, or because I feel like you're a person that gains a lot of people's stories and experiences through life?
Most of my experience from this was watching my sister.
Oh, okay.
Watching watching my sister get beaten, and I can remember one time, so right at about 13 years old, and we lived out in California, and she's my half sister, so she lived with her mom, growing up. But this by this time, she's 5 years older than me, and she was married. Had just gotten married, and her husband had come over and had stayed with us. And I slept out in the den, camping out. I'm a kid. I'm camping out in the den. My sister and my brother-in-law are here, and hearing him at night and what he did to her and how he was, and then seeing her, this beautiful woman that is just broken down, to you know to a miniature version of herself, where she wasn't herself, and from this domestic violence, and having seen so much domestic violence, in my time, and then from talking with Jara, and Jara's
Oh, she has a lot of
foundation.
experience with that.
Yes, she has a lot of experience in her foundation. Which goes out and helps women, in this, and just really, I drew a lot of it from that. But then also, having, mental, suffering from depression myself, and seeing, other people who don't treat their mental illness and can turn to this. And so the idea of the book is, yes, it's from her side, but as I state, John, the main antagonist, her husband, hadn't always been that way.
Mhm.
There was something that triggered, well, a little bit more into him. He suffers from PTSD from his time in Afghanistan, to where he was leading his team, and his team ends up getting killed because of a decision that he made. And so he's suffering from PTSD. And then when his brother is killed in a car accident, that was it her fault? No, not really, but she blames herself. She was driving the car. It was, he blames her. And so therefore that trigger that broke that PTSD and took it into an aggressive type. So there's two types of PTSD. That there's a destructive PTSD and there's a constructive PTSD. To where the constructive is to where you you will take it and you will use it to do things to help yourself to get out of it.
Mhm.
And then the destructive is where the depression comes in and the aggressiveness comes in, and it gets put out on everybody
So it
else.
could be self-destructive or it could be
Yes.
outwards destructive,
Yeah, and his comes inward
which
and
is
outward.
also common too. Like I feel like both are pretty
It's
common.
it's mostly it's mostly the latter.
Yeah.
Very, very few, and the ones who do the former are usually the ones who are seeking help.
Hmm.
It's the ones who don't seek help that take that internally, and then also have the ability to turn it, or could very much so turn it around and be destructive to everybody else on it.
I do find it interesting because, like, you do have experience with not necessarily being a target of domestic abuse, but it was in your environment. Do you feel like it's kind of your way of like working with that trauma, like trying to digest it a little bit?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and one of the things that I've learned, in reading other writers and talking to other writers is that we do take our own experiences. I took a
You write what
class.
you know.
You write what you know, and then you fictionalize it. And I took a class, that was put on by James Patterson. James Patterson is a very well known author. Has written a number of books, and Neil Gaiman. I took one of his classes as well, and they both say, you write what you know, you write your own experiences. And then I love what Neil Gaiman said about it, is that you create lies about it.
Like, what do you mean by lies? Is it?
These stories, so
Yeah.
you take experiences in your life and then you create stories based upon your experience, and you're telling a story through that.
Well, it's like you kind of like exaggerate them depending on like what kind of angle you want to tell them at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, granted, this is my first novel. I'm just getting into it,
Mhm.
and I'm soon to have a coach with it, and I've been, taking classes. In fact, I just enrolled with Southern New Hampshire University to get my bachelor's in creative writing.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me that. That's like
So
awesome.
I,
So,
I, I start next month with the class, and
like, you're
so
not busy enough. God, you make me feel lazy.
like I said, hey, one, I'm single. I don't have a girlfriend. I'm not dating anybody. I'm not even on the dating scene. I've got this time, and I've got to
You're
fill
not
my
there
time.
yet, David. It's okay. The right woman's going to come along. Don't you worry.
Oh, I'm not. I fully know that when God says, okay, it's time for you to have somebody, and I got the perfect person, that our paths are going to cross.
Yeah.
Or if we already know each other, then it's going to be that, hey, you want to give us a shot, type situation. But right now, that's not the case, and and I'm okay with it. Yeah, I get lonely about it, and my depression will kick in on it, and
Well, we are very tribal creatures, so it
we
does make.
absolutely are.
Mhm.
That's why I love cigars so much. It's because cigars, creates a community.
Well, it keeps us grounded towards other people. It really does. I feel like in a way during COVID, I feel like I always go back to COVID. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry if I mentioned this. If it's a
No,
dead horse, I do apologize in advance. It did make me very much lose faith in people, like how if they're like truly kind, thoughtful, dimensional beings, and then cigars like revitalize that faith, you know, going out, smoking a cigar, having like personal, in depth, face to face conversations really save that perspective. And I totally give, I give all to cigars for that. I don't think I would
the,
be the same
the
person
great
I am.
equalizer.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because we're so, I feel like it's so easy to be separated from people personally day to day. We can
Hmm.
easily subtract ourselves from that and just view our screens, and that's what we give our definition to people. But at the end of the day, it's that face to face personal interaction
Well,
that.
well, what? There's a lot of bad things about COVID,
Oh, it was terrible. It was
uh,
terrible for me,
but
honestly.
but there's a lot of good things that came out from it.
It did. I was thinking about that today. I think it got out the toxic people out of my life.
Well, it forced parents
Hmm.
to take part in their kids' lives
Oh
because,
yeah,
because
it
now
was
their
a wake up
parents had
call.
to come back and take responsibility for their child's education,
That was
which
another number one. I was grateful
huge.
being in the state that I am in, like Texas. Like people can whatever they have against Texas, like gave me the freedom to at least make my own decisions. So I'll always be grateful for that.
Well, within the cigar industry itself, I mean, cigar sales went up during COVID.
Oh yeah, we were in the restaurant industry. It was great.
Bourbon and whiskey sales
Hmm.
and wine sales went up during COVID. Telecommunications went up during COVID. I can't tell you how many Zoom herps that I was on,
Oh,
during those first times, it's like, hey, let's get on Zoom, and so you're out on the patio with your.
it makes me wish I was with Micallef during that time because it sounded like it was such a renaissance for us because I know we did so many online interactive stuff and everyone was just
That
together.
that's how I got to know Micallef, is because I was on a number of those with Andy, and
Yeah,
and that's how I got to know you, Andy. And so when I
it's
got to meet Andy in person, it was like, dude, yeah, you're that one. It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
and
well,
it sounded like so much fun and I missed all of that. I missed all of it.
oh, it was so yeah. I mean, and it kind of comes back to what I was saying. Control what we can control. When we focus on what we don't have, then we miss seeing the blessings that we have. It's kind of that there was a movie, documentary style movie. I can't remember the name of it, but it was all about that. That energy that we put out. And that that I'm a Christian, so this whole energy type thing. But even biblically, it comes down to that give and it will be given back. So if I give out positivity, if I give out goodness, if I give out grace and I give out mercy, then that's going to come back to me multifold. So if I stop focusing on what I don't have, stop focusing on the negative, start focusing on what I do, start focusing on what I can do, start focusing on the positive and the benefits and the blessings, I'm going to see that start coming back more and more. And it is a battle. It's a struggle. It's so easy to fall into that misery loves company type
Oh
mindset.
yes,
But
it's
if
very
we
difficult.
control what we can control, which is our reactions, and we react differently, we step out with our right foot then instead of our left foot, we're in a much better position. So
No, And that's the one thing I admire about you the most, and this is why I always enjoy talking to you. Like, we need to hang out more for sure. Like, we have great conversations overall, but you're just this perpetual positivity, always working towards something. It's always inspiring, and it's also, the older I get, you like cherry pick people that you want in your circle. Like, you're definitely one of those people that I want in my circle, because and that too, like, you're so supportive of everyone. You're always helping people, and I find that so inspiring every time I talk to you. Every time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really believe in that statement of you are the 5 people that you associate with, that you hang around with.
And it's
You
true.
know,
Like, I
yeah.
meet people that can do great things, but they surround themselves with not so great people, and they dissolve, and it's really sad to see. And I think we like to give ourselves a compliment that we're very strong personalities, but at the end of the day, you should really surround yourself with people that more are aspirational than people that are beneath you.
Oh
And I don't
yeah.
mean beneath you in a negative way. I just mean like,
Beneath you in their
yeah,
attitude about life.
yeah, exactly.
If all you do is associate yourself with people who are constantly bitching, moaning, complaining down on life, guess
Yeah.
what you're going to be doing? You're going to be bitching, moaning, complaining down on life.
Or they
But
just
if
don't want to do the right thing because it's the hard thing. Like, I'd rather be associated with people that do the right thing because it's the right thing, as opposed to the easiest thing to do.
yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Associate yourself with people that you want to be,
Hmm.
even if you're not there yet.
No, I mean,
Associate yourself with people that you want to be.
some of my best girlfriends, like, they're so much better than me. But I love them for that. Like, they're like, I'm like, girl, I should raise the bar.
Joe, it's not even half empty or half full. I mean, we're down to a single finger pour here.
Oh, is
But
someone commenting on the how much
yeah,
alcohol
yeah,
is
yeah.
left?
Joe said, and I know where he's coming from, but I thought it was a good joke. He says, "Is the glass half empty or half full?" And yes, that's exactly right. How do you look at that glass?
Well, you got a bottle next to you that you can add more if you need to.
Oh man, and this is a good one. Now see, this bottle is half full. I still have a
Oh,
lot
I'm
in here.
sad because I poured like some of my bottle out, but like it's still good.
Oh,
Actually, it's gonna
so
last me.
so what I love about this rye is that it's different than the others. Yes, she is resourceful. It is different than others because it opens up with a beautiful stone fruit peach note. And then as it crosses your palate, you get a little bit of a white pepper as it's crossing your palate. And then as it hits the end of it, that stone fruit note comes back. And it's almost like it's rolling back across and you're hitting it again. And it is so unique in that. And we talk about how our cigars transition,
Hmm.
especially most
Especially
heat
they
cigars.
evolve as we smoke them over time.
Yes. Well, our drinks transition. Now, where our cigars transition as it goes, from first, second, final thirds of it, our drinks transition as it crosses our palate from the beginning, and it hits all of our taste buds and hit all of our olfactories in our nasal passages as well. That transition of it is where we get it. So that's where I'm talking about on it. So when you first taste it, first hits that tongue, you get that peach, that sweet stone fruit peach note, which the rye grain is known for stone fruit notes on that. That's where we get them from. And then we get that spice, that white pepper, that cooking spice. And then as it hits the
Yeah, like
back of
rolls
it,
back, you kind of get that burn. We
yes.
call it the
So
burn.
yeah, so a little bit of that burn. That's a little bit of on that proof. But with this one, the way that sweetness hits the very back end of it, it's almost like you ever pick up a tart peach? Like
Hmm.
from a peach cobbler where you got a little bit of a tartness of that peach. That's what comes back.
Yeah, this is definitely a really good rye. Like I usually thought I preferred bourbons, but I'm digging this rye.
I have introduced a lot of people to rye, and
No,
what's interesting is women. A lot of times, women don't like rice because
do you
of
like
that spice.
bourbons more or ryes more?
Uh, Me myself,
No, just like from your crowdsourcing or I guess market research. Like, what do you think women prefer?
most women prefer bourbons.
I mean, I like bourbons a lot,
Yeah,
but I
most
don't know. I don't know. Like, I can't speak on the awareness why I like a bourbon more than a rye.
a bourbon typically is sweeter
Hmm.
in the overall of the palate. Is sweeter. Corn is sweeter. Corn is where we're getting a lot of that honey
Mm.
notes from it. Okay, so that sweetness of that honey is coming from corn. We typically associate rye with spice. I mean, think about a rye
It's
bread.
funny. I like spice though, so
Yeah,
maybe I'll
well,
like rye more.
that's rye is well, and for so rye in the early part of the industry was predominant,
Hmm.
and then it kind of died away as bourbon came around. Well, really, within the past, Joe, I'm saying within the past 10 years. What is your thoughts of when we've seen rye really start coming back?
I feel
And
like rye has always been this like quiet sibling behind bourbon.
it has
Like
been,
everyone always pushes bourbon to the front. They're like bourbon, bourbon, whiskey, 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 bourbon. I mean, minus scotch.
yeah.
We'll just take scotch out of the equation. But like they're always like, this is bourbon. You like this, whatever. And then rye has been like its quiet sibling in the background. So I don't think it gets enough attention as bourbon does. So I think it's easy, like mentally, to be like, oh, I like bourbon more, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's America's spirit.
Yeah.
And May 4th, 1964 is when it went into law that it was a distinguished spirit of the United States.
I mean, that
You,
can go into it as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the America, United States, is known for bourbon. Even though rye was the first spirit, it's known for bourbon. Bourbon impacted the industry. Bourbon is the reason why Scotch changed the industry, how they're distilling from doing just all peated to now you have more floral and fruitier types of Scotch coming out of Speyside and the Highlands,
Oh,
and
interesting.
so that came from because of bourbon, because bourbon was taking over their market share because of the sweetness of it, so they changed their process. That's because of bourbon. Bourbon has absolutely 100% impacted the whiskey industry in a very positive way. In a very positive way. But rye is coming back. There's the Sazerac, which is
Oh, I
a
love
line.
Sazerac.
Okay, so that's a line, but that was originally a drink. It's a cocktail. The Sazerac cocktail
No,
is a rye
one of my
base.
like Denton Cigar Company makes a Sazerac drink, and I love it. It's delicious.
Oh,
It's crisp. It's like a refreshing whiskey cocktail. Love it.
um, Thirsty Lion Gastropub has got
Ooh.
a beautiful Sazerac. And I mean, then they do the absence rinse. I mean, it is a beautiful Sazerac, and it is one of my favorite ones. But that's a rye drink. I mean, that's a
Mm.
rye
Oh,
cocktail. Manhattan is a rye cocktail. So rye is coming up and being, is making its resurgence back into the industry, and we're seeing that within the past couple of years. I mean, so now you've got Sagamore Spirits who all they do is rise.
you know
You've
what's
got
interesting? We were talking about this off camera, but when I was hunting for this specific rye, I was at Specs. And it's a smaller Specs. It's not like a very
yeah,
big Specs that was in it to begin with. But like I was looking for it, and like everything's marked off. There's your bourbons, Canadian, whatever. I didn't see a rye section. So I went up to the front and I was like, hey, like, where's your rye section? And they were like, well, did you check in the bourbon section? And I looked at her and I'm like, well, why would it be in the bourbon section if it's called something else, you know? And I'm like, okay, I'll just go check. It was in the Canadian whiskey section. All the
Yeah,
rest.
yeah, and
Such an insult, I think.
it
Like, I feel
I
like rye should get their. It's like they're the redheaded stepchild. They don't even count at this point.
well, really now, honestly, the true redheaded stepchild, which you will never see a section of, which is another. There is a wheated whiskey,
Wait, I'm
where
sorry.
a wheat whiskey,
A weed whiskey.
wheat,
Oh, I was like, weed?
not
What?
not
No,
not wheat. So WHEAT,
a
the
wheat whiskey.
grain, wheat
Okay.
whiskey. So there, and we're seeing more of those start to come out. Old Elk has a beautiful wheat. Lone Elm here in the DFW area has a beautiful wheat whiskey, completely different profile of it, and it's a 51% more of wheat. Yeah, weed whiskey.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they created a weed whiskey? I don't know.
Uh, can't, there are weed
I,
spirits,
I
but
would.
you
That'd be
can't.
pretty.
There's none that can be a whiskey, because a whiskey has to be made from a cereal grain.
I don't know. There's gonna be some pothead out there that's like, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, that
No,
would
but
be.
wheat whiskey. So that's very interesting. So like
Yeah,
rye is obviously a different formation of wheat. I don't know much about farming or anything, but that's what rye is essentially is, right?
no, rye is a completely different grain
Oh shit. I don't know.
than wheat. Yeah,
Hmm.
wheat. You can have a four grain. So Penelope does some beautiful four grain whiskeys. Westward Cast Strength. Yeah, it does. I agree. It does taste like dankweed.
Oh, so it does.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I mean, it'd be interesting though if they could formulate like
It's
a wheat whiskey that would taste really good.
there's there are some really good wheat tea with. So now I'm gonna be self conscious every time I say that now.
Weed whiskey.
Enunciate, graybeard, enunciate.
Oh, very green and earthy. It's delicious. And go with the Candela cigar. I think would pair nicely with.
That would be interesting.
It would, I think a wheat whiskey with a Candela cigar, I think would pair well. We might have
Uh,
to do this next time.
well, see, and I was thinking, because I know we've got some new colors that are coming out
Oh, are you talking
from
about
the
the
Cal.
Micallef side?
Yes, so we got some new colors that are coming out. So
Honestly, I don't think a Candela is going to be one of them.
oh, see, I was so hoping that you were going to do a Micallef green, and it was going to be a
Definitely
Candela.
a mild one. Definitely, I think a Connecticut is in our future, for sure. I think our
Is it
portfolio definitely needs it. It's just
is it
it
going to
takes
be the green? Is that going to be the green?
probably the white, but the
The
white's going to
white?
take a bit. Yes, because from my understanding about blending cigars, the mild cigars take the longest. They're very complex because it's very hard to create a good body, complex mild cigar, and we
Oh,
want to perfect it so it's
it's
successful.
very the
It's
so
very
so
hard.
the actual name for the color of the Candela and what we call the Connecticut is the Candela is a double Claro, and the Connecticut, what we call Connecticut, is a Claro.
Yeah,
And that is very difficult to produce
and
because
honestly, a successful Candela, like I've smoked a couple. Well, no, I've probably smoked one of them, and that was the Fomorian by Romacraft, and that was because they had such a strong binder and filler for it to
yeah.
compensate the wrapper.
Well, so okay, so let's talk about some Connecticut's that are very well known and very complex and very very good. The porcelain by Black Label.
Oh, interesting.
And people look at that and say, "Oh, this is Connecticut," and well, it is, but it's also an ass kicker. I mean, it is a strong, and I don't mean strong in the acidity, but I mean it is. There's a lot of peppery, a lot of Lajero, a lot of strong Esteli tobacco in there that will kick you in the groin and knock you on your ass, and it's very good. But it's got a Connecticut wrapper on that. It's a Connecticut broadleaf, I believe, on that. The War Witch by Black Star Line. The original War Witch is a Connecticut. It's also very very strong one.
Even
The
our Connecticut is more body to it.
Yeah, your
You
Connecticut
don't
is,
have a true mild cigar.
and it's harder to do that. This is how good this red is. I'm taking it down to the nub. I don't want to put it out.
I
The
neglected mine because I didn't want to go to a coughing fit again. My cold.
the island gem is very good as well. Some candelas that are really good. Jack Wyatt candela is really good.
Oh, Jack
Illusion
White.
88.
Okay.
Illusion 88 has a candela that's exceptional.
Was it like
Sebastian,
Henry Clay had a good one? Good
yeah,
Connecticut. That's fantastic.
Sebastian Cavalier. They did a Connecticut specifically for the lounge in Austin. I can't remember the name of the lounge off the top of my head, but he did one exclusively for them. That is a Connecticut that is just out of this world phenomenal. But it's a very difficult wrapper to create because of the process, because you have to shock it to stop it from fermenting.
Well, and like, well, I mean, it's curious when you find a good Connecticut, right? My palate's more medium to full. If I'm smoking in the morning, I'll go towards Connecticut. That's the only time I'll do it. But there's a lot of like mild smokers that do enjoy a good Connecticut. So what is a good Connecticut? What's a good mild for them? So it's hard to meet that expectation of a true mild smoker and still be complex where anyone else would pick it up.
There's some really good ones out there. The one that comes to mind is put out by Greg Free from uh, Forteze Libre. Used to be
Okay.
Forte Libre. He's got a Connecticut that is really good. Sun Country.
Okay.
Sun Country was one of
Oh,
my
Rosa
top.
Sharon. I think that's another one.
Rosa Sharon. Yeah,
Oh,
Rosa
that's a great
Sharon.
one. I love that one.
Yes.
Or a
Uh,
foundation, High Clear Castle. I don't know if that counts. Does
oh,
that kind of is a
that's a
Connecticut?
that's a Connecticut, but it's
Yeah.
a little bit more meaningful. 40
Yep.
Acres Farm, another good one. Okay, so let's go with a very well known brand, Oliva.
Oh, they're
Oliva,
Connecticut. Very clean finish on it.
Oliva G. I mean, someone who's just coming into cigars, and has never smoked a cigar before.
I used to sell that all the time. Clean finish, smooth, not like it's not going to leave like a lingering, I guess, offensive in your mouth if you are a beginner smoker.
Luciano's his the name of it just left my mind, but Luciano has one. Espinola with the El Creme.
Oh, the La Crema.
Yeah, yeah. That is another good one. My father's
Oh,
has a
my
really
father's
good,
so it's a little bit more heavy body than that though.
but it's an Ecuadorian Sumatra. It's
But
a
like it's a fuller body than your normal Connecticut with the my father's.
it's a it's a fuller body, yes, because of that, because of how much smoke it puts out, and the intensity of the flavors. The flavors are stronger in it.
Mhm.
So just because it's a Connecticut doesn't mean that the flavors have to be toned down. It comes back again to what is that full blend. I can have a Connecticut
But do you find that people that gravitate for like stereotypical Connecticut blends, they want that mild flavor, that very smooth experience, as opposed to being hit in the face?
I think that people that tend to gravitate it that are newer are afraid of the darker wrappers because they're afraid that it's going to be a punch.
They're afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. But think about this. So Maduro means ripe. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
So
It's like a
but
ripe banana, right? Like you
yes.
think that it's dark, that it's going to spoil. It's not necessarily true.
Now think of how sweet that ripe banana is.
It's a lot
I mean,
more
the
fuller.
sugars are intense on that ripe banana. So a Maduro wrapper on a cigar is actually going to be sweeter because it is fermented longer, allowing the natural sugars in the tobacco to come forward. So the ammonia levels and the acidity levels have gone down because it is fermented longer. It has stayed longer in the pilon, so it's fermented longer.
You know what's interesting? Well, I mean, I think we discussed this behind the scenes, but I think manufacturers have made Maduros stronger in terms of not just flavor, but content, because that's what they decided to gravitate. So, like, a lot of people think that Maduros are supposed to just be stronger all around, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily true.
No, actually, excuse me,
Oh, it's okay. I was like this earlier.
in a lot of Connecticut's, when they first come to the shelf, so they, they're first in the facings. We get them from the factories. They come through customs. They immediately go out onto the shelf. A lot of Connecticut's are going to be a lot stronger of a cigar than your darker wrappers are.
And as that you said before, it's because they have more ammonia content,
It's
right?
because the ammonia content and the acidity levels is higher on that. The tobacco has not had the time to age to tone down. So, I mean, think about it. You get a cigar, and typically a Connecticut cigar, and you start smoking that, and you get that strength. Your skin is tingling. You get that kind of tingling notes, feeling on your tongue. You know what I'm talking about. And you get a little bit of that bitteriness in it. And we'll tell people it's like, okay, just go ahead and get another one, but let it rest in your humidor for about you know a month or 2, 3 months, and then
So
smoke it.
So, like, what is the confusion that people find that Connecticut's are just smoother, more negotiable smoke than Maduros? It's just because they're aged longer before they get on the shelf? Or, like, what is it? Like, because this is what I think for me as a cigar smoker gets confusing because I always feel like Maduros are always like, they're not stronger, but they're going to be more intense flavor, right? It's more of an
They are
intense
a lot of
experience.
times there are more intense flavors
But
on that.
like, but I do associate that with the tingling, with the spice, with the overall flavor of the Maduro. But I know that's I don't I know that's not necessarily true in terms of strength. But like Connecticut's, I feel if I smoke a Connecticut, it's let's say it's not my first Connecticut of the day.
Right.
It can be digested as bland, like not as impactful as I decided to go with a fuller body smoke. What I'm just this is why I get kind of confused with like I guess when I hear like how the aging is done and whatever because in my mind I would find that Connecticut would be preserved to be stronger in terms of on my palate.
A lot of that is so. A lot of that is because of the aging.
Yeah.
Um, the cigar manufacturers, they're trying to get the product out
Hmm.
because they're not getting any revenue with the product sitting in the aging room, right? They're the if it's not on the shelf, then there's no chance for revenue coming in from it. So if it's just sitting in their aging room waiting for for it to hit that point to be able to then be shipped and for the brokers to get it, and you to take it to the lounges and say, okay, we've got this in, how many boxes do you want? There's no revenue coming from that. So a lot of brands will try to push it through to, try to get it to the shelf sooner. And so with your Connecticut's, they are coming in and they're much younger tobacco on that. So you've got that strength on it. Let's take that and use the analogy of the wines. Okay, you get a younger cab, a red, a younger cab that's only got 2 years of age on it. So now we're getting, we're in 2024, we get a 2022 vintage of a cab on that, and the tannins are on it are really really high level tannins, so it's really mouth drying. It's got that, it's got a little bit of that bitter type note to it, mouth drying. And we'll say, okay, your sommelier is going to say 2022 is a good vintage. Let it rest for a little bit, let it lay down for about another year or 2 years. Drink this in 2 years. That tannin levels are lowering, coming down on that through the aging process, and making it a much smoother drink. On
Hmm.
that same thing applies to our cigars. When our cigars are younger in tobacco, those ammonia levels are higher. That intensifies the nicotine levels of it, or intensifies that nicotine feel impact. And so we equate that to strength of a cigar. That cigar feels a lot stronger, and how that nicotine impacts within our body and how our body reacts to it.
But the natural sugars of the tobacco plant aren't out, so the flavor's not as intense. It
Right,
adds
the
to it, but
flavors.
it isn't as intense.
It's not as intense. You're not getting the real true flavors of the tobacco and what it has to bring.
Oh, interesting. So I feel like primarily cigar demographic in terms consumers for smokers are Connecticut's because they're probably getting more of a tobacco high, like a nicotine high, off of the Connecticut's as opposed to Maduros.
Yep. But
Interesting.
because of the way that we have educated people, the way that we have talked about cigars in the past, the way that Cigar Aficionado and Cigar International, and Half Wheel, and and it's no fault to them, but
Yeah.
this is the way that it was just explained to everybody of what it means. We have immediately equated that this Oscuro Maduro, which this is actually an Oscuro, um, is going to be much stronger on
Yeah.
it. Well, you'll see the scale. I mean, you go out to a to a website, you go to any of the major websites, where it talks about it, and they'll have a scale on it just because it has a darker leaf on it, and
It'll be higher.
it'll be much higher on it. Well, actually, this cigar, because it is aged longer, has fermented longer, has entered into the first maturation phase of it, is going to be much smoother. And I don't like that term, but it's going to be much smoother than a younger tobacco is going to be.
So I have an interesting comment in the comments. Is there a lane in cigar production aside from aging for making minimally aged flavorful cigars naturally? From your
I,
expertise,
is there a lane in cigar production
I would say
aside
it'd
from
be
the?
medium, right? Like the habanos. I feel like
Yeah.
that'd be natural progression of.
So a habano is a type of a seed. There is no seed called a Maduro. Habano is a seed.
Yeah, Maduro is
Tip,
just aged.
yes,
Yeah.
Maduro, Connecticut, Candela, Claro, Colorado, Natural. Those are all process. Talking about color and talking about process of it. Um, I'm not sure I follow you with is there a lane in cigar production? That's a part that I'm confused on what you're meaning by that, Joe.
I guess like he said, minimally flavoring cigars. So like, what's the minimum that you can do that produces a flavored cigar? I would assume the Candela.
As far as the aging goes, I really think that the minimum age is about a 3 year.
Yeah,
Three year age is on
but are we talking
tobacco.
about wrapper or the full cigar? I would
The
assume it'd
full
be wrapper, right?
the tobacco itself,
Yeah.
the overall age of the tobacco, including the fillers. But
But I mean, like, as we all know from being a cigar consumer, you look at the wrapper to engage at what type of flavor content you're going to get from the cigar. So I feel like it always has to be on the wrapper.
yeah, but I look at when I look at the wrapper, the type of flavors, I'm gonna want to know what the seed is. So what
Yeah.
is that actual wrapper? Is it a Habano? Is it a Sumatra? Is it a Criollo? A Corojo? Is
But
it
at
a
Candela, do you know how a Candela is aged?
Candelas are aged very short time period.
So it's shorter than Connecticut. So I assume that's
Yes,
like the shortest you can go with.
I really think so because
Mhm.
what they do, and I don't know what the process is, but what what I think it was John who used to be with LFD that was describing it. Uh, you kind of shock that tobacco to stop it from fermenting. So it is in the pilon pile, but you pull it out earlier, so you don't, so it's the process of it aging and fermenting in the pilons is shorter, and then there's I don't know what the process is to stop it for fermenting. That's something
Yeah.
that I haven't learned as of just yet. They typically don't sit in the aging room for as long. So as it comes out the plant, it's dry, it's hung and dried on the different stalks, and then it gets separated out and goes into the pilon pile. And the pilon pile is where the fermentation starts on it. And they'll rotate that pilon pile around so that it goes from the top to the middle and the bottoms and so forth. The lighter shade tobaccos, the lighter shade leaves wrappers such as your Connecticut's and your Candelas, they come out quicker on that. Then they go into the bales until they're ready for production, when the for the rolling. When they come into the rolling, for the particular blends, they get rolled, and then they're put in bundles and they go into an aging room. And so it's typically a cooling aging room. Some brands do it in a warm aging room or a hot aging room, which helps that pushes that fermentation and that aging process. So it's kind of like it accelerates it some. And then from there, then it goes into the boxing and comes to us. So what they're doing to get that Connecticut or really that Candela, I'm not sure what process that goes through, but I would imagine, just knowing the full process of it, that they're not sitting in the aging room as long. And so therefore, a younger tobacco, because in the aging room is where it goes into what we call that first maturation phase of the production of the tobacco, and that's where the flavors start coming through. That's where the oils have a chance to start spreading out into the tobaccos, into the cigar itself, throughout all the tobacco, and then coming out through the wrapper. So you'll notice that a lot of Candelas and some Connecticut's, that they're not oily wrappers. That's telling me that process, that they're not in the aging room as long.
Yeah, because like the Maduros, you get that nice, thick, oily wrapper, which I love on a
Yeah.
Maduro.
Well, you can look at this one
Yeah,
here. I mean,
beautiful.
you can see how it's kind of glistening.
Yeah.
A little bit of it where it does the tobacco itself. You can kind of see it. It has that oily, uh, glistening feel to it.
That's
And
why I
when
love Maduros. Oh
oh,
wait,
I
fuck.
love Maduros.
And I love a good medium body cigar too. I love my Habanos as well, and Connecticut's when time allows. But yeah, my heart will always go out to Maduros.
Yeah, I agree. Mine does too.
Hmm.
I love a good Maduro, and that's why I lit up another one.
Yeah.
And this one is Crown Head
Oh,
Ozinger.
the Crown Heads.
Yep,
Which one is that?
the Ozinger.
Oh, nice. I have not tried that one yet. I'm gonna have to try it.
This one's been sitting in my humidor for probably almost a year.
Oh, nice. Got to be good
So
then.
this is coming out to be very very nice. So it says
Okay.
like in whiskey production, contact with the copper or other scientific techniques for
So we're
making.
breaching on 2 hours right now, which is
Yes, I
great.
saw that.
It's so
Well, we
easy.
always
Honestly, it's so easy to do that with you. Like I'm not like docking down the time, but I know you're coming out with a new issue of Leaf and Grain Society. So when
yes.
is that going to be coming out?
It's probably going to come out. I'm hoping to be about probably around the second week in October.
Oh, excellent.
So we've got a large number of the articles in. I'm still waiting on some from a few. Hint hint, wink wink, nudge nudge. Joe, calling him out here since he's here.
Well, it
Um,
sounds like that still Austin will be featured in it, which is great.
Still Austin. Yeah, so I've got a review of Still Austin.
Yes.
Uh, there's going to be an article in the magazine. Oh, that's right. Yours is in. I forgot that. Thank you. Um, I've got an article that I'm doing on Micallef,
Oh, excellent.
calling it the trifecta of colors. So the trifecta of colors, where we're going to be talking about the black,
In
the
honor of our
blue,
colored
the
series.
red, in honor of the colored series,
Excellent.
and with a full in-depth review of the red on the website after the magazine is launched.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm very excited to read that. Well, I always love your guys' issues because what I like about the Leaf and Grain Society is that you guys don't indulge on one, I guess, option of flavor. You guys go on everything. So it's like cheese, it's whiskey, it's wine, it's cigars, it's and Leaf and Grain. You guys kind of go from, I guess the origination of how the flavor is made into what it is produced in. So I think that's a really cool thing that you guys do.
It's fun, and I do want to call out Joe, because Joe and I, we do the cigar pairing articles, and Gabe as well, and we do the cigar reviews. And one of the things that we talked about that we wanted to do in our reviews, and we apply this to our whiskeys and our wines as well. So Terry Lindpoint,
Oh,
you
Terry's
know,
great.
who does our wines, is when we're reviewing them, we want to go over the experience of it. So when we're doing a cigar, whether it's a cigar review or it's a pairing, we're going through the cigar through the thirds, through the first third, and what we're getting out of it. And we introduce it in what is the visual experience, what makes it special, how is the cold draw on it, how does the construction of it look, how does it light up, what is that initial smoke like. And we talk about it at a good level of what the experience is through the first third, the second third, and the final third. And then we give our overall experience of it and we score it. And if we like it, we come back with why we liked it, what it was about it that impacted us, that we liked it, that gave it a score. If we don't like it, and it's a score that comes down below it, below a 90, which a score in the 80s is still a good score for a cigar. But we also come back of, this one didn't hit me, but here's why, and here's what I would like to see differently in it. So we're not going to come back and say that, oh, I'm scoring this cigar at an 82. Don't buy it. It sucks. I'm gonna say this score. I'm scoring this cigar at an 82 because the tobacco was young, or the blend wasn't right for this Vitola. I'd like to see it in a larger Vitola, or I'd like to see it in a longer Vitola. It was some what it was about that experience that we would like to see differently with it. We're never going to just bash a cigar. It's like even with the coffees, where we had a review of Starbucks, some of Starbucks coffees, and we came back and said, well, what would I like to see with it? I'd like to see where maybe the beans aren't roasted as long,
Mm.
or I would like to try this again. Maybe not in an Americano that I had it in an Americano. Maybe I'd like to try this coffee in this and see.
Well, you know what? There's something that I like to iterate, if I can say it right at this point, or mention is that you guys do not work on paid advertisement,
We do not.
which I do. I think it does keep the integrity of your guys' reviews. And so it, like, as much as I invite you onto this platform and I'm like, hey, like, we're going to talk about it, I know that it's working from a kind of pure standpoint where, like, even if you guys do not like, let's say, a blend we come out with, it's fine,
Mhm.
and that's what I like about your guys' platform, your publication, is that everything that you review and you speak on, it always becomes from your guys' pure perspective and your opinion, which I do admire.
Well, we are consumers too.
Hmm.
I'm yes, I get paid to do this. I can say that I work. I get paid to smoke cigars, drink whiskey and wine, and I love it. And it's fun to say that.
It's not a bad job to have.
It's not a bad job to have. But at the end of the day, I am a cigar smoker. I am a consumer. I smoke cigars and I enjoy cigars. I drink whiskey and I enjoy drinking it. And the same thing with wines and such. So we each of the writers, and Red and Matt and myself, the three partners behind it, and the key team members with Joe and Gabe and David and Terry and Stephen and such, we all want to make sure that every single one of our articles that we're writing is for the consumer, from the consumer. So, you know, I'm a consumer of the product just like all my readers are. And I'm going to write an article and I'm going to put out a magazine that I would want to read. At the end of the day, that's what we want to do, is what is put out something that, as a consumer, would I want to sit down and read what Leaf and Grain says about a particular cigar or a particular whiskey or wine or what have you. Yeah, I want to create us to be that trusted source of what does the consumer say about this.
Exactly. And I like, as working for Micallef Cigars, I have much faith in our product that we will be matching the consumer's needs. But at the same time, if we don't even match your needs, it doesn't, I guess, absolve my faith in our product, if that makes
No,
sense.
no, and it shouldn't.
No, it doesn't.
It shouldn't, because while there's the saying that everybody's palate's different. No, everybody's palate, what we
But I know you're
enjoy.
gonna like it. I know you're gonna like it, Dave.
Yes, what we enjoy is different.
Hmm.
The maturity of our palate, what flavors we can pick up, that's different. An orange is always going to taste like an orange. An orange will never taste like an apple. But if I don't enjoy apples, I'm not going to smoke something that has apple, that has apple notes to it. So that's where everybody is different. I'm going to enjoy different flavors of cigars and whiskeys and wines than you are. And that's where we're like Micallef, and I love what you're doing with the colored series, to where you have taken three different wrappers from Mexico, from San Andres region, and have produced three completely different blends with three completely different profiles. And where the black may not be for some, the blue may be, or the red may be, or the red may not be for some, but the black or the blue might be. And that's what I like, is that differentiation of that in their profiles. In whiskeys, if I'm drinking a whiskey from a particular brand, I don't want one expression to taste exactly like the next expression. I want to see variations and difference in that. And your Micallef is creating cigars, and I love that you're coming out with these new blends to go along with your main core line, that offer different things for the different consumers that maybe something in your core line doesn't offer for them.
Mm-mm.
And that's what's putting Micallef on the map, and we're seeing Micallef grow. I mean, I've been an ambassador for a number of years now, and I've seen Micallef grow over the past couple of years from that. And it's that dedication of what of trying to produce something for all the different palettes.
And it's very exciting to see, like, working from the manufacturer standpoint, is not just the different blends, but the different price points. Like, I think another bragging point about our colored series is it's a very approachable price point for your everyday consumer. We're not,
Oh my
as
goodness,
much as
yes.
cigars are a luxury product, we understand that, but I'm an everyday man, you're an everyday man. I feel that resonates more when I know I'm getting something quality that matches my needs in terms of financially. And I feel that is so personal and wonderful. I mean,
Oh yes. The
I
the,
can
the
get a
fact
quality smoke and not pay over $20 for it. I mean, like,
uh,
I feel like it doesn't insult the consumer.
sub $10 smoke,
Yeah, just,
that and I mean, you've watched the Texas Cigar Roadshow.
mhm.
You watched our show. You've been on our show. When we were doing a show, I described cigars of whether or not I consider this rotation worthy, 5-pack worthy, box worthy. This cigar here, and I don't give this one, and all of the Micallef colored series, and I wouldn't say this on all Micallefs. This one is box worthy. The
Yeah,
blue is box
100%.
worthy. The black is box worthy. There's some of the Micallefs that I would put rotation worthy. Where I'm going to go and pick up a 5-pack, or one or two at a time. I would absolutely buy a box of this one without any hesitation on it. And I know that because of the quality that you guys are putting out, that when the next Micallef color comes out, I can go and buy a box of that one without any hesitation. That
Love it.
says something.
Give me job security, David. I appreciate it. Well, anyways, well, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. As I have before, David Yancey from the Leaf and Green Society. You guys can check him out at leafandgrainsociety.com. He also is a new published writer. He came out with Taking Control of Your Career, that is on Amazon. So if you're ever on to the job search, go on Amazon. He is on publication, and he's going to be producing 4 books soon. So keep an eye on that. If you count, well, do you know we're going to be producing your fiction book at all, or
No, not yet. I
okay?
would
So
I
we
would
don't put a
say that
timestamp on that.
Yeah, I would say that I'm probably a year out from that one. I'm probably about three to 6 months away from producing the next one in the Taking Control of Your Career series.
Yeah.
But I've got a number of them in the works. I do produce a writing once a week.
Oh, you have a
Uh,
subscription. I forgot about that.
Yes, yeah, I've got a subscription. I call them the Saturday morning prompts. They don't always come out on Saturday morning, but I find a prompt, like a first couple of sentences of of the story that it wants you to continue on. So I find a prompt and I write a 800 to 1200 word story
Oh, where can they
on that.
subscribe that at?
Uh, it's my Substack, and it's daveyancey.substack.com.
Okay, great. We'll make sure to provide a link for that. But if you guys want to, I guess, replicate our pairing, again, it's the Micallef Red when it's available to your retailers near you, and it's Stillwater, Austin.
Still Austin Red rye.
Yeah, still Austin Red. But yeah, but then again, thank you for joining us tonight. Had a fantastic conversation as we always do.
Thank
We
you
need to
for
do this
having
more
me.
off camera, always. I feel like we have great conversation.
Yes, we do.
And again, thank you guys all for joining us tonight. I will be guys seeing you later this week.
Fire it up when we finally turn.